Hello, this is Black Country Blokes chewing the fat.
Listen.
I've been hearing a lot lately about men don't talk, but in my experience, men do talk, just people aren't listening. So it's going to be me and a group of blokes discussing our struggles and victories through life. Warning, there may be some bad language, so apologies to all the moms, especially my own. Let's get going.
Listen.
Today it's just me, Kev Dillon, and Lee Cadman. Unfortunately, the other two blokes couldn't be here today. Bloody part-timers, are they? Today what we're going to be talking about is two sides of the same coin. Me being visually impaired from the age of 3 years old through viral meningitis, and Lee Cadman, who's got a disabled daughter. So it's going to be our conversation about one child having disabilities and the other, a father having a child with disabilities. Most of my life I've struggled with the fact, but I never considered up until I was a father myself how hard it must have been on my mum and dad. So this is going to be two sides of the same coin. So Lee, would you like to go into the details of little Calla Rose, about how you found out she was poorly and exactly what's wrong with her?
So Calla's got a rare form of epilepsy called Dravet Syndrome, or a Dravet as us unposh people call it, and how it's spelt. She also, adding to that, has global development delay, stage 1 kidney failure, lung issues. There's quite a whole range of issues now, which has led to last year of being in hospital in an induced coma for almost 2 months. And we found out really she had bronchiolitis when she was roughly 6 months old, and this caused a hospital visit.
Because your other kids had to go into hospital through bronchiolitis.
Exactly the same reason. They went in at roughly the same age as Calla did. So we kind of thought nothing of it. Thought a couple of days of antibiotics and she'll be back to normal, back or healthy, back. But while she was there, she had a seizure, and at the time it was put to having a high temperature. And again, nothing was really thought of it. A few days later, she was healthy and everything was fine, and we went on holiday. And we were lucky really, because one of her triggers for epilepsy is heat, and we went abroad to a hot country. And luckily, while we were there, nothing happened. But as time went on, she started having strange movements in her arms and in her legs. Which
she was 6 months old, was she?
Yeah, she was 6 months, and it was kind of the movements were kind of like you were cold, I suppose, and you were shivering. And we put it down to that, to be totally honest. Again, we thought, she's just a bit cold, let's warm her up, she's shivering. But it was getting more regular, and you think, well, she's not shivering no more, there's something happening. So we took a recording, and my sister's a nurse, and we sent that recording to my sister, and she then went to people in the know, basically doctors, and said, what do you think of this? And they said, basically, get her checked out.
At that age though, because they're so young, they can't describe, can they? As a parent, you're just worried anyway.
Yeah.
About anything abnormal, and it must be petrifying.
It is very, very, very petrifying, and that doesn't stop, because now she's almost five in October, but she's not verbal. She screams with excitement, but there's no words, there's no communication, all but in her eyes really, and we know through movement she makes kind of what she wants and what she doesn't want, but there's no actual communication.
How is she? I know of her, and I've met her a few times, but can you explain to everyone like the physical side effects of her condition?
So physically, she's in a wheelchair. She can crawl, she can sit, she keeps her head up fine. There's possibility that she will walk, but it will be on her terms and whether she can stay well enough to have the strength to do that. But she's a happy child, and really that's all you can ask for. She's very happy and outgoing.
Because I know she has to be fed through a tube, and I know you've had no end of troubles with that, have you?
Yeah, so she's fed into a duodenum, so it goes into a stomach and then into a small intestine. She's fed on an 8-hour cycle doing that.
So I know when she was trying to be orally fed, it keep going into her lungs, didn't it?
Yeah, so that was a major cause of her being in. It's been a major cause throughout her life of her being in hospital. She's either been sick and it's gone down the wrong way and sat in her lungs, and made her poorly and led on to sepsis and things along that line. She was on a permanent oxygen, but the last 4 or 5 months she's come off that, and it's only used now in emergencies. So yeah, that's been a major cause of problems, but hopefully solved at this point.
That's the thing, isn't it? When you're a parent, to anyone out there is a daddy or a mummy or a nanny and a granddad, you spend your whole life worrying about stuff, and it's so easy so difficult, sorry, not to be at the doctors every time they're crying or they've got a tummy ache because children don't explain.
Yeah, and Calla again has a really high pain threshold, so she broke a leg and we weren't aware at all that she'd done that. It was only after over a week that she got out to go crawling, and she broke a leg just above her knee, and she put a knee down, and then she started whimpering, not even crying, not like a cry like if I broke my arm or it's painful. You'd have tears. It was a whimper, and that was the only reason we got her checked out. And even at that point, we had we was trying to find what was wrong, so we had her on her back and was moving her arms and her legs and moving everything around, and there was no sign of pain at all. She's also had pancreatitis, and again there was no signs of pain leading up to that, and that led to a long spell in hospital in the end, because it was getting worse, and we weren't aware that it was getting worse.
Such a brave little character, isn't she?
She is definitely.
But this is why me and Lee today, because it's just the two of us, and we were saying about different things. And I said, wouldn't it be an interesting topic? Seeing, as I say, the same coin from different sides. With me, I had viral meningitis when I was 3.5 years old, back in '87. And Mum had been taking me to the doctors for a few weeks, and they said it was the flu and it was glandular fever. And it wasn't until I went into a coma and I was rushed into hospital where they found out it was viral meningitis. And what had happened, when I woke up from a coma, I was completely blind. But doctors, how it was back then, didn't pick up that I was blind and I was moaning a lot. And what had happened was the meningitis had turned into optic neurosis. It's a big word, I understand. But it basically means where it rots the optic nerve. So my eye is perfect and the brain is perfect. But it's like if you haven't put the SCART lead into the TV properly, the picture's flickering and distorted. And my eyes were supposed to come back at 6 years old, but because of the neglect, the optic nerve had rotten severely, so my eyes won't come back. I'm completely blind in my left eye, and I have about 7% in my right eye. But through my life, as I said in the intro, I only focused on my own struggles, as a child does, and it wasn't until I had Jasmine 4 years ago that I started thinking, well, how hard it must have been for my dad and my mum, who were there, and I've achieved so much, but I imagine at the time my parents were thinking, well, is his whole life ruined? Will he be able to do this? Will he ever able to have a partner? Will he ever able to do normal stuff? That's why I thought today it'd be a good time to have a talk about it. And it's tough being the one, and it's hard. It's tough being either sides of the coin, I imagine. That's what I'm trying to say.
I mean, I can only see it from my side, and I'd do anything to take that away from my daughter. And I've no doubt you'd be in the same position that you would if it was in your daughter, if it was your daughter with your condition, you would quite happily, not happily, that's the wrong word. You'd take that away from her.
Well, they could have my good eye as long as Jasmine never had to have a cold.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's and it's a very different situation in some sense, very the same, and I think in life in general, you don't realise what your parents go through until you hit that age where you have children yourself and you see back, and that's with everything, isn't it? But it's just more pronounced when it is a person with a disability. You see actually they've been by your bedside all this time, and I think with Calla, the expectation is totally different to what yours would have been.
Yeah. But because back in the 80s, viral meningitis was taking limbs and people coming brain damaged. I mean, I lost my eyes, which is terrible sacrifice, but so, I mean, God forbid it did to me like Calla or someone like that.
That's it. It's but with Calla, the expectation is the same. It's just the achievements are different. I don't
Yes.
know whether I'm saying that
No,
right,
you've
but you
bang
kind
on.
of you don't lower, but her achievements are so much greater than like my other two children who get good school reports. Whereas that's great, that's brilliant, but actually Calla's achievement to be able to crawl far outweighs that, in terms of because of what the struggle she goes through to do that. The achievement of not needing oxygen full time and things like that. So she achieves and she blows my mind more. But on the same sense, my other two children, they go through all this with us. We spent 2 months of last year in hospital in the blazing. It was sunny this time last year, pretty much, and they still kill it at school. They're still, they're very caring children. They just they get on with it, and they're brilliant. They're brilliant with Calla.
And how remarkable that is. I mean, love is such a phenomenal thing, isn't it? And like my big brother, Richie Dill, 10 years older, and he was the one when I was diagnosed in a coma, because we hadn't got a house phone back then. Mom come out and I was dead in Mom's arms, and Richie was having to run down the road to tell Nan, to phone the hospital, to run back, to run. And it's amazing how strong family is in the worst of times. Like your two babies, our Richie, and they don't. I said to Richard, did you fall off the rails because of me? And he said, no. I've only ever loved you, and I've only ever wanted you to be well and happy, and that's like your two, isn't it?
Yeah,
you don't begrudge them because you needed a bit more extra time off mommy and daddy. They sometimes were put on the back shelf, but never once, and I guarantee your babies will be the same. I've never begrudged them, or, well, Dad never took me fishing because you were at the bloody hospital. It's
In truth, I suppose your parents are the same as I feel. Sometimes I feel like you're neglecting them because of that reason. Whether they feel that way is well, we'd have to speak to them to find that out. In truth, but you definitely have that feeling that all your attention is on one child and not all of them, especially when she's ill in hospital. My kids literally will go weeks really without seeing us, because we're there by the bedside, and you're talking, this is not your everyday situation of a few weeks in hospital and everything be fine. This is life and death. She may, we were told excuse me, we were told when we went in last summer that she probably wouldn't make it. We were told that a couple of times, and we were told when they started taking off the drugs to put her in an induced coma that she'd be severely brain damaged. So it's not your everyday situation or illness. So you are by the bedside constantly at that point, and that does mean that your other two children are shipped from pillar to post, to be quite honest. They go around. Luckily, we've got friends and family, and they're all brilliant, and they take care of them and try and keep them as occupied as possible. But that's still in your mind, you do feel like you're neglecting them.
how old are they now?
So Lily is 10 and Alfie has just gone 8.
For your sake, I'm glad you remembered their ages.
I know, you put me on the spot there, didn't you? Lucky it was Alfie's birthday a couple of weeks ago. No, I always remember them. And my wife's anniversary. And
I know you're just brown nosing.
No.
But isn't it wonderful how strong children can be? We always hear about how spiteful and how cruel children can be at school. But they can also be so strong and so loving.
And resilient. I think
Resilient.
It's phenomenal, really. How, again, we've had countless ambulances turn up to our house, and blue lights go in, and the first couple of times the kids are, all nervous and crying, and because the ambulance is here. Now my lad sits on the sofa, and it's like nothing's happening. He's got that used to it and that resilient to it that it's. Yeah, he's worried, but he's the same panic is not quite there as it used to be. It's, they're so resilient to it all.
And it wouldn't surprise me if he goes into later years being a paramedic or being something like that? Because he can react and you just don't know, do you?
Well, I think he wants to be a YouTuber.
Well,
I don't blame him. Don't blame him one bit, to be totally honest. I can see my daughter probably more going into that side. She has that caring nature. My eldest, she has that caring nature and that worry, that motherly instincts already there. And I suppose that's been heightened through Calla. You know, she does take some of the burden off us looking after and feeding and changing feeds and that kind of thing, and so yes, I see her doing it.
we touched on something the other day when it was me, you and the other blokes talking, saying about how people react to seeing Calla sometimes.
Yeah,
How they don't want to come over or they don't like look.
I think they don't know what to do. I think is the key to it. You know, they don't know what to say. They don't know they just don't know what to do in that situation. So I'll tell you all now. Come over and speak to me because I'll explain it, and you can meet my daughter, who's amazing. And don't be shy about it. I much prefer that you ask questions than just ignore us or ignore her. You know, or just stare at us. And the same goes for children. You know, we've had children. She has quite a flashy wheelchair, so all the children think it's amazing and want to come up and talk. And you see their parents pull them back. Don't let them come up. You know, there's nothing to be afraid of. You can't ask us the wrong question. We've heard it all, to be totally honest with you. You know, in that sense,
Isn't that
you
funny?
can't put your foot in it. Not with me.
Isn't that funny what you said though? Children are so naturally curious, and we teach them not to be curious.
Yeah.
Whereas if Jasmine come up to Calla and we'd never met and said like, what's wrong with her daddy, and instead of saying, oh, don't say that, don't offend, instead of going, she's just a pretty little girl, let's go and find out, or would you like to say hello to her, Jazzy?
Yeah, that's it exactly. And I suppose because of what you've gone through, you're more inclined to do that than most people, to actually take her up there and explain it. And you know, there's nothing wrong with being inquisitive.
Nothing at all.
Yeah, let that happen. Definitely don't shout them for being inquisitive. Come up and ask.
It used to make me laugh when I was growing up, and I'd explain to someone that had bad vision, and they'd come nose to nose and go, hello, are you I'm thinking, I'm visually impaired, I'm not deaf, I'm definitely not an imbecile.
Oh well.
Well, that's debatable.
yeah, definitely debatable there, Kev.
But it's funny how people will ask, or they'll say, what can you see? And I try my best to explain it through different mediums. But for me, like, so I lost my eyes 32 years ago. I've seen every day since, so it's hard to explain in terms that you would be able to understand, because I'm used to seeing it this way. But the best way I can say is like silhouettes, or instead of seeing a photograph, I see a finger painting, the same picture but without all the details. Like I'm sat here facing Lee now, but I wouldn't be able to tell you what colour his eyes are, or if he had any blemishes, but I can still see the person. I know it's Lee because I've known Lee for a long time. But sometimes I get confused if someone was wearing a different top, or if I see someone at the gym and that's him in the pub, or vice versa. And so sometimes I get used to recognising where I believe people should be. But I've never been frightened to answer questions, because I think that is the greatest form of knowledge. Instead of reading a book or watching a YouTube, if you go and talk to someone about what they are going through, you'll have more truth. It's not fake news, it's not doctored, it's pure. And that's one of the many reasons why we started this podcast today. And when it was just down to 2 blokes instead of the 4 blokes, me and Lee said, well, why don't we talk about this? It's an issue, we've known each other for 20 odd years. And maybe this conversation could be a good bridgeway of us talking about stuff that we probably haven't talked about. I remember when Calla Rose got diagnosed and going through it with Lee, and he's known me for a long period of my life, and we thought, what an interesting talk.
It's quite amazing actually, Kev, seeing you, because obviously, as I say, I've known you a long time, and I've never seen it affect you, or you've never shown it really that it's affected you. Apart from probably the last 5 years, I think we've talked more openly about things because of my situation as well, and I think just in general, the mental health side of things is coming more to the forefront. but up until that, and I suppose we were younger, so when you're 16, 17 years old, you don't show these things. Actually, all you want to do is go out and get pissed and in Kev's garage. That was
Yeah.
kind of what we did. Yeah, it's a great inspiration for me to see that, and to see actually my daughter is not going to be able to do the things you do. I know that, but you can still see that there is achievements you can achieve. It's not all over because of it. It's just the beginning, really.
And it is, as you said at the start, it's achievable goals.
Yeah.
It's like me sat here now, we're in the boxing gym, going, this time next year I'm going to be a multi-millionaire, I'm going to own my own company, and thinking, why have I aimed so high?
Yeah.
Why don't I set, well, in next year I'm going to be slightly better off, and the next year I'm going to be slightly better off, or
Yeah.
I'm a bit overweight, I'm going to lose 5 stone by next month. You go, next week I'm going to have lost half a K. The week after, if we set ourselves achievable goals, then when we achieve them, we find another goal.
But I mean, on that note, this year actually was the first year that I've done this with my children. All my children, me and my wife, have done it. We've set ourselves 3 goals at the start of the year. No, I'm doing terrible. I'll open it. At the moment, I'm doing terrible. My other two eldest, they've both achieved one of their goals. We've set a goal for Calla, and this was to not spend as much time in hospital, which is a bizarre goal, to be totally honest.
Well,
you can't really
a pure
affect,
goal.
She can't really affect that, but she's ill, she's ill. But actually, she's done really well of it. Another goal of hers was to be able to take steps aided, so whether it be with me or my wife holding her, or things like that. And I think these are achievable things, and you have to do that. You have to still, no matter what your situation is set those goals for yourself, and it gives you a good sense of achievement when you do complete them.
Don't set yourself too high goals, and if you don't quite do it, don't put yourself on the cross.
That's it, definitely.
Try your best, or do your best. I hate that expression, try. If I try to do something, I'll never do it. Do everything to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
And if you come short, it's okay.
Yeah,
Just do better, or do something different next time.
that's right. That's definitely right.
But what Lee was saying earlier about, I've been more open the last 5 years. I've got a 4-year-old daughter, and I'm 35, coming 36 this year. And I think older you get, you become more open. And then having a daughter, and I want to spread it around that life is cruel, but life is bloody beautiful. It's hard, but it's so rewarding, and it can be so fun. Even in your darkest days, try and find some glimmer of light. Because depression, be it through disability, circumstance, loss, it's going into that dark room. And the longer you're in that room, harder it is to come out. And you walk through a door, and then around the corner it turns into a maze. And the longer you're in there, it's so hard. And if you are lucky enough to have people to guide you back there with encouraging words and shine that bit of thought, that bit of light of hope, by the grace of God, you can come out of it. And I think by talking, or truly listening, showing your flaws and your insecurities, it can make a difference. And that's why it's only about 6 weeks ago, me and a group of lads who've never met each other, apart from like through the boxing gym, getting here and talking about our own struggles.
Can I ask you a question, Kev, just on regards to, because we're talking
course.
about disabilities, so I forgot what I was going to ask, to be honest. So have you talked to your mum and dad about what they felt at that time, obviously many years ago now, when it happened on that side?
I have a fair few times, especially now I'm a dad. I think that was the light bulb moment when Jasmine had a cold, or she was feeling shitty, and I thought, bloody hell, and I was worried, and I thought, this is over her having the sniffles or a cough. I thought, well, how about me having meningitis all those years ago, and they didn't know if I was going to wake up, and they didn't know all this. And I sat down with Mum a fair few times. She's just an absolute angel. She sat with me every night in the hospital, sleeping on the floor or whatever. And I talked to my dad, and he said, I felt like I was being punished for all the wrong that I did when I was younger. And I've talked to other parents, and that's like this, it's a common theme, that if your child is taken away, or if your child gets poorly, it's like the universe or God or whatever you believe in is punishing you for it. And I don't believe that to be true. I just think it's one of them fucking unlucky things.
Yeah, I'm totally. I mean, I've heard a million and one times it's that phrase that God only deals his hardest battles to his strongest people, or something
Yeah.
along that line. And I don't believe that at all. I think actually the situation makes you strong. I think it's just that you're in that position, and a lot of the time you just have no choice. You
Yeah.
just have no choice at all of what's going to happen or what's going on, and you build your strength from that.
Well, the only choice you do have is either you stay or you go.
Go, and to me that's no choice.
That's no choice.
Yeah, that's just not really a choice in it.
To abandon the thing that you love the most
Yeah.
at the most critical times.
Yeah.
But how many people have done it?
Yeah.
You know, they haven't had that strength to stay there and be there.
I experience that quite a bit within my work. Basically to do with disability equipment, and there's a lot of single moms mostly actually with disabled children, and if you speak to them, a lot of that is because their partner couldn't handle a child with disability. I think a lot of it is they don't stay around long enough to see the beauty in it as well, if that makes sense.
And that's not knocking the blokes, because everyone's got their reason.
Circumstances.
But as you said, I mean, very strong character. But saying they haven't stayed that long to... And there again, there's so many dads and mothers who've abandoned the child when they're young, and then I've had dark days, and Jazzy will just do something so soft, and the light just comes back into that dark room, and you're having the worst day and she'll say something so soft or so funny, or she'll give you a cuddle or a kiss or whatever it is, and it's a whole new day again.
Yeah, that's right. So can I ask you what your greatest fear is regarding your disability? I know the children, but...
It's funny, I said this with Aaron, when he asked me. I said, my fears, a lot of it, I'm fighting. I've had loads of fights, win, lose or draw. It's not about public speaking. It's not even about doing this. I don't have the same amount of nerves as other people, but a lot of things I'm frightened about is like when I go out, especially now I've got Jazz, and if she loses she comes out of eye range, and I panic, and I can't see her, so I start shouting to find her because my world's there. Or about like crossing roads, like, cause I might not see the car come in. So a lot of my fears are you wouldn't even consider it. Like sometimes, like, cause I'm blind in my left eye, so depth perception. So sometimes when I'm walking, I don't know if it's a step, a curb, if it's a shadow off a lamppost, but that could be a lamppost, could be a step. So I'm always on ultra alert. So a lot of the stuff that frightens me or gives me the anxiety, it's just a day-to-day life for you. But a lot of stuff that I just don't give a kipper's dick about is a big thing to others. So fear is fear.
Yeah, that's definitely right.
And and I think other things I'm frightened of, I mean, I'm not frightened, but a lot of stuff that makes me sad is like when Jasmine's doing performances or something, that I can't fully witness it. She'll never know this, apart from when she's old enough and she listens to this, or like she had a dance recital the other day and I was on front row centre and I still couldn't see it, but I clapped, and or when she's done a things at play school and I have to stand at the back or at the side. It doesn't matter if I can see it for her, as long as she knows that Daddy's there and he's very, very proud.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it does upset me because I want to witness everything that she does.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of my... but, I mean, I kind of know that with Calla, I will outlive her, unless something goes horribly wrong with me. But also that I spend so much time... The regret I'll have at that point, because I spend so much time actually working and doing other things, that I'm not there. And ultimately, at that point, none of the stuff that I do with regards to work or my own social life will matter. That's a big fear, the regret I'll have at that point. But I still have to work. We still have to earn money. We still have to pay our way. So that's kind of the way it is. But it is a big.
And does that weigh heavy on you?
Oh, definitely, that weighs really heavy on me. I did counselling at the start of this year, and a lot of that counselling was around that, because kind of, and it's still really that's not really got any better. And I don't think it will because of the situation. That's how do you get that kind of that
Well, that's
kind
not
of
even
thing?
loss, is it? It's the dread of loss.
It is definitely. I mean, I know I'm certain it's going to happen. And that's going to be awful. You
But
can't
not knowing
describe
when.
not knowing when. That's and the regret I'll feel at that point of not being able to spend as much time as I'd like in a company while you can.
Yeah, I really feel for you, because I say that when you've lost someone, then you start to accept it, but the realisation, but not knowing when or how, and by the grace of God, is in many years, and she has progress and science gets better. But yeah, I feel for you, bruv.
Yeah, there's no, and it is what it is. There's no magic cure at the moment for any of that, and it is something I'll just have to live with. To be totally honest, I'm not sure if I went counselling for the next 20 years that'd go away. It is one of those things, and we all know at some point we're going to die. But I think when you have children, you expect to outlive them,
No.
and it's definitely not. And no doubt at some point your mum and dad had
Yeah.
that same feeling.
When Dad was in X, he used to come and read me bedtime stories about King Kevin and the Lion, and he'd be reading stories. And my dad's a storyteller, brilliant bloke, Bob Dylan, best friend. And he used to sit there, and other children had come listening to him, whose mummy and daddies hadn't come to see him. So Dad would be telling stories about Kevin fighting Mum Ra and all this. And then one day he'd go, "Where's little Lee today?" to one of the nurses, and go, "Sorry, Mr. Dillon, he passed away in the night." And he said he killed him.
Yeah,
And because that's my dad all over, such a caring person, that's where I get it from. But it's the battles that we have to go through. And now, may I just say something on the way? When you're feeling down, because this is when this used to get to me, and I'd say I'm feeling really down about something. My girlfriend's left, or they go, "Well, how about Kevin? He's blind," or "How about Lee? His daughter's." Don't feel guilty about someone else being bad. It's okay for you to feel bad yourself.
yeah,
And I think that's where we put it onto people. We start to make them feel guilty. I feel poorly. Well, think about all them Africans in Africa. At the time, you couldn't give a fuck about the Africans because you're going through your own stuff.
that's definitely right. And you can never compare what each other's going through. At the end of the day, you're not in each other's head or not in each other's shoes. The one thing I will say, I heard a good saying the other day, and that is that silence is the perpetrator's best friend. Now, this person was talking about sexual abuse, but it actually works the same, because your silence, your perpetrator, your head, that's his best friend. Not talking to people helps that side, So actually talk, and that has took me, as my wife is well aware, I'm not a talker myself. It took me a long 5 years really to get help for counselling. And in truth, if it wasn't, I had high blood pressure, and if it wasn't for that, I still probably wouldn't have done that. But you definitely feel the benefit of doing it. So, and it's not for everyone. At the end of the day, I don't think, in truth, I don't think counselling fully worked for me in that sense. But you've got to try these things. It did help, but it didn't help as much as I think I'd like to for it to. But you've got to do these things. You've got to try. If you are depressed, try antidepressants. Again, it might not work for you, but you can try, and and then you go on and try and find another solution. I think you've got to be open to these things.
That's life all over, isn't it? Don't be frightened of not doing something because it might not work, or it might. Go and try for yourself. And I think a lot of this stuff, counselling, NLP, hypnosis, yoga, meditation, if there was one diet that could fix us all, we'd all be on that diet. And I think counselling, NLP, and all these things are the same. What works for someone has to do a technique to forget about it. Someone has to come to terms with it. So we've got to try and find what's good for you. And I think the best thing, as Lee said, is don't be silent about your struggles. I'm not saying stand there screaming and crying all the time, but go talk to the right people, be it your friend, your mother, your sister, your wife, and start talking, because it's helped me so much. By opening the door and not feeling like I'm going to get bullied or ridiculed or mugged off or teased has really helped me. And you'll be surprised how many good souls there are to listen to you.
Yeah, that's definitely right. That's definitely right. Find your medicine, I think.
Find your medicine.
The key to it, and try them all out. Yeah.
Well, gang, we're coming to an end, so I'm going to find you a quote. And this one is from the great Muhammad Ali. And it is, if my mind can conceive it, my heart can believe it, then I can achieve it. Until next time, gang, ta-ra a bit.
Listen, listen, listen.